We'll go ahead and get started here. We're recording, so we'll be able to have this for everybody else as well. But thank you guys for coming back today. Welcome back to day 2 of the Recruitment University. Like we talked about yesterday, we're going to be going through a few different things today, developing a committee, talking through the 3 periods of recruitment, pre-recruitment, during recruitment, post-recruitment, what that kind of looks like. If we have time today, we'll break down a little bit of marketing, but we may push that back to tomorrow in the event that we go past on time. So just to kind of dive right in, yesterday we talked through a lot of different things. We did an activity around, creating an elevator pitch, creating what's unique, or being able to state and define what's unique about ZBT, and talk through the responsibilities of the position a little bit as well. And so one of the big responsibilities of a recruitment director is developing and running your recruitment committee. So that's what we're going to start off with today. So want to talk about, I'm going to use an analogy here a little bit, talking about sports for a moment. We think every year colleges and universities search for, maybe new coaching talent for their football teams, right? Basketball teams, whatever it is, right? The first thing a football coach typically does after he's hired is put together a coaching staff. So this staff is made up of people of various different areas and various different expertise areas as well. So, an offensive coach, a defensive coach, stuff like that. Head coaches utilize their team of coaches and their expertise to identify and recruit the best talent to play for their teams. So that's basically a good analogy, I think, of what we want to think of ourselves as as recruitment directors, as a recruitment committee. I think you have a head coach and your coaching staff. That's basically what we're kind of looking at right here as well. So you're the head coach of your team. Having just taken over from the previous head coach, you have a few options. You can keep the coaching staff that worked before, the recruitment committee that worked before, or you can create your own coaching staff and try to bring in some new people into the conversation. So I think we can all agree that coaching, offense, defense, special team, and quarterback is far too much work for one person, right? That's why they have a lot of different coaches there to help out. So I want to hire, some assistant coaches here to assist with everything that they're working on their team. So what does this mean for a recruitment director, right? As a recruitment director, you're going to need to identify brothers within your chapter who can lead in different areas of recruitment. Chapters utilize committees in a lot of different ways. Some areas that you can utilize committee members specifically to recruit from could be recruiting out of cities that brothers are from. Misha, I know at Berkeley, almost all you guys are from LA. And so maybe having a few brothers recruit specifically from LA could be a good option, knowing that you get a lot of brothers from LA. But any brothers that you have outside of LA, utilizing those brothers maybe to recruit from their specific areas, hometowns. Maybe you have some people from the Bay, maybe you have some people from outside of California. What are some ways that we can utilize people to bring more people into the conversation, right? States the brothers are from, right? Maybe if somebody's from, you have a few brothers from Florida, recruiting out of Florida, of whoever, you can get that, that's coming to your school, for example. Good ways to set up some committees there. You can also recruit out of student organizations, right, on campus that brothers are involved in. So James, maybe, recruiting out of, the people that work for orientation, right? That could be an example of recruiting out of some of those organizations on campus. I always recommend, recruiting out of student leadership. If you have brothers involved in student government, on campus, making sure that you have some type of pipeline there to recruit out of student government on campus. A big area that we see in ZBT as well, that a lot of brothers recruit from or out of, or out through Hillel and Chabad, or maybe Hillel leaders or brothers that are involved with Hillel on campus or Chabad on campus. That's usually a pretty big area that we see recruits come from, or other cultural or religious organizations that brothers might be involved in. And the last one, that I have at least on my list right here is just recruiting out of classes that brothers might take, right? So maybe you have a big population of econ and accounting majors in your chapter, and so you could recruit out of that intro to econ, intro to accounting class that every person in that major has to take, right? Maybe in one of those first semesters or quarters going into the year. So before we move forward, I want to take a moment for you all just to take a moment to jot down the main areas or pipelines from which your chapter normally recruits from. So maybe knowing, that, for Berkeley, for Misha, knowing that a lot of your brothers are from LA, that seems like a big area that you guys are able to recruit from. So thinking of different areas that the brothers are involved in, where people are from, what most brothers have in common, what are the typical areas that you guys recruit from? Take a few moments and would love to hear some thoughts there as well. So I'll come back here in just a second. All right, would somebody like to start us off just kind of sharing maybe some answers to those questions? What are some typical pipelines that we see getting into our chapters? Where are we recruiting brothers from currently?
Some really big places that we usually recruit out of, I've got about 4 written down here. One is Frosh Camp, which is kind of like an orientation put on by the university, but it's a summer camp, and a lot of our brothers are counselors for that camp. We've got several of our brothers through that. Also, just a town called Lexington, Tennessee. I myself am from there. Several of our brothers have been there. One guy joined like 7 years ago, and then friends of his friends of his friends, myself included, we've just been going down the line over like 7 years. Student government associations are a really big one for us. Another thing that's kind of where we got a couple other guys last year, and then also, like I said earlier, orientation.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's great, right? I love the hometown aspect. I think is cool there as well, of having some, just a pipeline of people coming in, right? That's great. That's great. Misha, anything on your side from your chapter?
Yes, for our chapter, I mean, like you said, a majority of our house is from Los Angeles, so a lot of the people we recruit, we kind of know before, or we find people, going to Berkeley from LA, and we kind of recruit like kind of in advance, and then finding even more people from LA. For example, like I didn't know about the fraternity, but through that LA connection, knowing that the whole house is from LA, like I was really tied to the house. And then also like orientations, we have a lot of computer science majors, a lot of econ business majors. So through orientations for the new freshmen, we're able to kind of recruit a lot of people, because a lot of people have those same majors, and they believe that academically, like they would benefit for being in fraternity, because a lot of the people in the house have those majors, and they can help them with their assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Recruiting from the majors, I think that's a good pipeline there as well, right? Being able to, I think the concept of pipelines, right, is to be able to have some type of right, some type of similarity, between connection between potential recruits and potential new brothers and the chapter. And so, if it's hometowns, if it's majors, if it's they were all in the same orientation group together or something like that, those are great ways to just bring people in together. And have that, initial kind of connection that sparks everything else after that, right? So I think that's great. I think one thing to think of, as I think you both shared some great pipelines that your chapters are working with, but one thing to think of maybe as my next question is what are some areas that we think we could do better out of recruiting from? Are there any areas that we're maybe brothers are involved in some of these things? But we don't typically, it's not a focus of trying to recruit out of those areas or something like that. Are there any areas of improvement, any pipelines that are untapped, I guess I should say, as far as recruitment? Are there ways that we can get more involved in maybe some of those pipelines? feel free to take a moment, jot down any thoughts. But that's going to be my next question here as well. So go ahead and take a moment, write down anything, and we'll come back here in just a second. All right. Would anybody like to share their thoughts around untapped, maybe pipelines or anything like that, as far as where your chapter could be recruiting from, but maybe you just need to focus on a little bit more?
Yeah, I can share. I mean, for us, there's a lot of, like, all of our brothers are in various, like, clubs and organizations at school within Berkeley. And I mean, this is something that I actually tried to work. I tried to recruit someone who's in my consulting club, or still trying to recruit that person. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in, business consulting clubs and computer science clubs and different clubs associated with the majors that, I feel like we can, take advantage of that and really use that, use the time with them, at the club meetings and at the organizational meetings to recruit people. So I think that's something that we should take advantage of, in the upcoming fall semester.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the great opportunity there. Absolutely.
So when I was making this list, it kind of hit me. Our brothers aren't particularly involved around campus, which is unfortunate. I'd love to see that change, but just as of the moment, it almost feels like, I mean, I've got a few things down. I've got student employees from around the campus, weeks of welcome, which is a thing Memphis does for incoming freshmen. But besides that, it almost feels like in order to expand our pipelines, we're going to have to get our brothers more involved. That was just a thought I had as I was making this list.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great thought. Absolutely. And I think that's, a great opportunity for reasons why, we want brothers to be involved in different areas on campus. And I think not, we don't want people to get involved just for the sole focus of recruiting people, right? We want them to be involved to be leaders in the community overall, right? But I think there's definitely opportunity there to expand your pipelines, as you said it, right, around what else can we add to our potential list of pipelines that we can do. So maybe it's a matter of getting people more involved first, and then we can kind of shape out some of those pipelines. Absolutely. So when we think about these pipelines, and when we think about the concept of a committee overall, when you're put in the process of developing and building out your committee, it's first great to identify the pipelines that you want to recruit out of, right? And then you can identify the brothers, the workhorses, the people that are going to be able to recruit out of those pipelines to fill your committee, right? So having one person, Misha, maybe one or two people from Berkeley recruiting out of LA specifically as like the sole LA recruiters, right? They could run some people below them to help them out as well. But that could be something that, as far as when you're setting up your committee, you want to designate people specifically with that responsibility. Additionally, for other groups that your chapter might be involved in on campus, if somebody is involved in student government, that can be your person on the committee that specifically recruits out of student government, for example, right? So your pipelines are going to inform who you may want or may not want on your committee. There's also additional people that you can add on your committee. Some people are just workhorses that they're gonna do whatever they can to help you out. They care about recruitment. They are excited about recruitment. You're gonna have those people on your committee as well, to just delegate work out to, right? Helping you plan the events, helping you, maybe you need to pick up food, from a restaurant for one of your recruitment events, somebody on your committee, that if you ask him to do it, he's going to do whatever you need. Adding those people to the committee as well are great options of building and filling out that committee. I normally, just kind of sidebar here, I normally get a lot of questions on what is a good committee size. I think it depends on size of the chapter and the areas, the pipelines that you have, right? Our largest chapter, the University of Texas, I think their committee may be, upwards of 30 people, right? Very big committee that they have there. For maybe some of our smaller chapters, a committee of, five hardworking brothers, I think is a great number there as well. So I think it kind of depends on a lot of different things. Like I said, the pipelines, size of the chapter, all those kind of pieces there. So building and filling that out, I think is, if you, if you would like to talk through specifics or anything like that, happy to talk offline around what we think might work for your chapter. But we want to make sure that we have a committee. I think that's the first piece. Without a committee, you're leaving a lot of work to yourself, and I think that's just not gonna. It's obviously not gonna help out too much when you're scrambling trying to recruit people if you're the only sole recruiter, right? All right. So when we're talking about pipelines, when we're talking about committees and everything like that, one of the things that we'll talk through next a little bit in the pre-planning for recruitment, but I want to mention it here of like how this all kind of connects, is building out your names list, right? And starting to create a names list if you haven't already. So your pipelines are going to basically be what informs the creation of your names list. Is everybody familiar with the concept of a names list? When I say that, would we like an explanation of what that means? Or sounds good. Okay, cool. Yeah, names list really is just the people who you're looking at recruiting, right? So when you have these pipelines put together, maybe let's say you're recruiting at a Hillel or Chabad. Maybe you talk to some of the Hillel professionals, for example, and say, who have you heard outreach from, that they're coming here to campus or something like that. And maybe getting all their names and putting them on names and contact information and getting them on your names list. Or, just adding as many people as you can, from the orientation example, adding as many people as you can from that group of individuals to that names list as well. When we talk about names lists, general rule of thumb with names lists is 10% of the people on your list are going to be the people that join, right? So if you want 10 people in your new new initiate class, you're going to need at least 100 names on that names list. So I think that's a good kind of rule of thumb when we think of preparation for recruitment, when we think of goal setting for recruitment around what's our goal and how many people do we need on our names list in order to get that goal. So if you have 100 people on your names list and you're trying to recruit 10, you'll be able to hit that 10 number, I think, pretty easily. As opposed to if you only have 20 people on your names list and you're trying to recruit 10, you're going to need to be very, very involved with those 20 people in order to hit that 10 number. We want to have more opportunities than we have opportunities for them to, I guess, say no, right? So that just wanted to add that kind of piece in there as well. Do we have any questions on developing a committee, putting a committee together, or anything like that as we before we move on? What questions do we have about developing a committee? Do you all have a working committee at the moment? Or is this something that we need to kind of develop a little bit further? Where are you guys kind of at on committees as far as we were kind of talking about them now?
So at least for me personally, the committee's kind of been something that I struggled with in the spring, and that's just due to the nature of informal 365 recruitment. And Memphis as a whole. With formal right now, I'm putting the committee together. The way we like to organize it is we have the recruitment director, And then we also have the board, which usually we have somebody called somebody called a recruitment chair, who is kind of like the recruitment director's right-hand man. And I'm currently in the process of picking one, but my top two choices are also the old one was also the programming director who dropped. And so I'm waiting on that election before I pick one.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I think to your point around the informal recruitment, I think committees have the opportunity to be super successful in an informal recruitment setting, right? Because then you can really delegate the work out and recruit out of those different areas, specifically, to kind of bring more people in that informal setting. So formal versus informal committees go a long way in both of those settings. It's just a matter of how they're being utilized, right? And so I think that's a great thought there. And yeah, it sounds like we got some work to just kind of iron out that committee, but I like that. Those are good thoughts. Good having a right-hand man there as well.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we also have a recruitment director, and then we have several recruitment chairs, like 3 or 4 recruitment chairs under the recruitment director that kind of, the director will like delegate the tasks, and then we all have our, parts of the recruitment that we need to, help out with. So that's kind of how we.
Cool. Right on. Well, sweet. Well, I think hopefully this was a little bit helpful, as far as framing out maybe what an ideal committee could look like, or if there were questions around maybe filling some of those positions in your committee, chair positions below you, whatever we want to call them. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful as far as framing who are the ideal people to help out with those pieces. But wanted to pass it off to Jake now, going into as we move into a conversation now into the 3 areas of recruitment or 3 periods of recruitment. And Jake will start us off by talking through recruitment preparation, the pre-recruitment period.
Probably help if I unmute myself. So as we kind of talked about yesterday, is really recruitment. We want you guys to be thinking about recruitment as something you guys do 365 days a year. So even if you aren't extending bids to people, throughout the entire year, that's fine. But you guys should always be having some sort of having recruitment on your mind and be thinking of like ways that you can, use your chapter events and all of that for recruitment. Now we're going to kind of focus on what you guys should kind of be doing before your formal recruitment period, but all of these things can be used throughout the year as well as you're just kind of doing general 365 recruitment. So with pre-recruitment, these are, when we were kind of doing a survey, one of the brothers talked about how the recruitment events that you guys host are not nearly as important as what you do before recruitment. And that's spot on. One example of kind of like a good way that some of our chapters utilize kind of like good pre-recruitment strategies are some of our chapters that have deferred recruitment. So those are chapters where freshmen can't join their fall term at the school, but they can join spring. So a lot of our chapters, they may recruit some upperclassmen in the fall, but they really focus on the fall and on building relationships with freshmen so that in the spring, they already know pretty much who wants to come to their recruitment events. Like they already know who they want to initiate. They're just getting them to the event. So a couple good examples of this are our Tulane and Vanderbilt chapters. They both have deferred recruitment on their campuses. So they did a lot of work in the fall to prep for the recruitment in the spring. And then they both did really well this last year. They had an average of 97% retention rate while recruiting. Vanderbilt got 29 new brothers and Tulane had 31. So what does this kind of mean? What it means is that every chapter should really be planning for the upcoming recruitment season, really at least 3 months in advance. So if you guys are recruiting in the fall, you want to be planning 3 months, during the summer before you start recruitment in the fall. But what is, planning for recruitment look like? Kind of want to throw that question out to you guys. Like in your experience, what does it mean to prepare for recruitment, and like what kind of plans are you making prior to kind of like your formal recruitment period? So what does planning for recruitment look like for you guys?
I can go first. At Memphis, usually, so recruitment looks a little different at Memphis than it does at other schools because generally speaking, the university is not the most favorable towards Greek life. If they had it their way, we would have basically no contact with potential new members prior to formal recruitment. Needless to say, that's not really how it goes. But so prepping for recruitment usually looks a lot like getting the presentations ready, figuring out who we want. At the house, doing what on certain days. It's very much preparing for formal recruitment down to like, we want it to go as perfectly as possible.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we kind of we try to plan our week, our rush recruitment week in advance. And kind of, each recruitment chair is kind of in charge of certain events. And the thing is, at Berkeley, it's difficult because we have so many fraternities, and it's very heavy in the fall, and it becomes, everyone's going all over the place, and it's a really hectic week. So we try to make sure that, in advance we have all of our events planned, so then we can focus on, continuing to recruit, the potential new members, and, keeping them, since it's difficult because there's so many fraternities that are all, inviting people throughout that week.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So thank you guys for sharing those. It seems like kind of the things that you guys really focus on is like really planning for that week prior, or like for that week of like your official recruitment. But some of the things that we want to make sure that we're preparing for in order to have a successful recruitment are kind of like listed on the PowerPoint. So things like making sure you guys have a quality marketing practices. Even during the summer, you guys want to make sure that you guys are posting things like, what are brothers doing for internships? What are they doing for vacation? You guys want to make it seem like you guys are active throughout the entire year, not just like the week, spamming like thousands of, posts on Instagram, like the week before recruitment to make it seem like you guys are doing stuff. We want to make sure that we're having appropriate branding for, our recruitment t-shirts and our social media posts. Make sure that we're hosting recruitment workshops. Like let's make sure that we're having recruitment workshops if you can during the summer, or even like the first week we get back to school. The earlier you guys can do that and we can talk about those things, the better. Making sure that you do have your recruitment committees established. I know we've already talked about that, but making sure that that's all set up so that the committees can get to work. Developing a names list, connecting with the students on campus as you guys are getting back to classes, and then preparing for those actual recruitment events for the week, and then making sure that you have like your calendar figured out for recruitment, making sure that all your brothers are informed of what's going on for recruitment and how each of them can be helpful in playing their own role in recruitment, whether or not they're on a committee or not. What questions do we have about some of these items that we talked about, or other thoughts you guys have?
One thing we really struggle with is getting brothers involved in recruitment outside of the actual formal week of recruitment. I would say that's probably one of the biggest hurdles to our recruitment efforts here in Memphis, is the larger chapter involvement. Because it seems like the general chapter attitude is just like, we worry about that during formal, and then, the recruitment director takes care of the rest when it's not formal. And I would really like to see that change. And I thought about like positive incentives or ways to encourage brothers to get involved, but it just seems like overall it's not working.
Yeah, I think, Jake, did you want to take that? Or
No, I was gonna let you say whatever you had on your mic, Cody.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's one that unfortunately is not it's not specific to you guys at Memphis, right? I think we see that at different campuses and at different times in the year as far as recruitment goes. And maybe some chapters are heavy into fall recruitment, and then they care, the general brothers maybe care less about the spring recruitment, for example, or something like that. What I have seen that works, what I have in the past, positive incentives there, I have seen different pieces like that work with, if it's maybe something as simple as, all right, each brother, setting an expectation, and then maybe additional incentives around, okay, the expectation is that every brother adds at least 5 names to the names list or something like that. Any additional names that come from that, there could be, incentives if your chapter can afford a discount on local dues or something like that, or maybe, if you have extra merchandise or something like that, giving them extra shirts or something like that you might have on, in storage or something like that. I think the incentive itself is less, of less importance, right? I think if there is opportunity for incentives, I think that is a good, I have seen that work. I talked a little bit about the expectation piece, and I think this kind of comes into, something that would, it's probably a broader conversation as well, because I think this would, you would have to kind of update your brotherhood quality standards into some of these pieces also, general expectations, of the chapter. But if you set the expectation early and upfront and you remind everybody of it often, whatever you set as that expectation, you can hold people accountable to. So this is less of on the incentive type side of things, but more so on the, this is the expectation, this is how we're going to do things. If you don't do it this way, it will be handled through, you will be held accountable for not kind of meeting these expectations. So expectations could be as simple as, like I said, adding 5 names to the names list. Expectations could be as simple as you will attend every recruitment event unless you have an excused absence, right? And setting those expectations and making sure that you're always reminding everybody about those expectations. When you set expectations, you are able to hold people accountable to them. If you don't set those expectations, that's when you lose all sense of, for lack of a better way to put it, power in over everybody else, right? If you don't have, you can't hold somebody accountable to an expectation that they didn't know that you set for them, right? So how are we setting expectations is probably on the flip side of the incentive piece, but I think that's a big, piece as far as keeping brothers involved in all of the recruitment aspects. Making sure that the expectations are reasonable, right? You're not saying that you're not setting the expectation that every brother needs to recruit 10 people at minimum, and if they don't recruit 10 people at minimum, they're going to be sent to the standards board or something like that. That's, I think, an unreasonable expectation. But there is opportunity to set, figuring out what works for you and your chapter around what is that basic expectation, I think goes a long way as well. So those are just some of kind of my initial thoughts. I do see incentives work. Expectations always work in all aspects of fraternity, whether it's recruitment or just general brotherhood quality standards, stuff like that. But I think just another piece on the expectation piece, as long as you're holding people accountable to the expectations, people will follow them. If you just set the expectations and there's no follow-up afterwards, there's an issue there, right? So then they're just words and they're not, they're not actually anything that matters, right? So those are just some of the bigger things that I see. Jake, did you have anything else as far as like motivating or keeping brothers involved, I think maybe in general, throughout the entire recruitment process?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to kind of piggyback of what you were saying with the expectations, Cody. And I think, when you're setting the expectations for how involved brothers should be with recruitment and how like everybody should be involved with it, I think just explaining the importance of like why everybody should be involved with recruitment. Like, it doesn't make sense if you only have like 5 guys on your recruitment committee and you're in a chapter of like 40, 50 guys and like no one else is really doing anything else. So you have a recruitment committee. Everyone in the recruitment committee, they bring 3 names. Okay, so now you have 15 people on your names list versus if 50 guys all brought in 3 names, then you have 150 names. So by everyone pitching in, it takes off a lot of the work from it takes a lot of work off of like, it divvies up the amount of work everyone has to do and makes it a lot more manageable. And just, I think just expressing like, hey, like recruitment, like if we don't recruit, like chapter's longevity is at risk. So I think just explaining that, and then like Cody said, like discussing the expectations, I think positive incentives are really good ideas. So I think all of those really work.
The other piece that I would add, like we talked yesterday about, you know, like the why of why is their job important? Why, you know, what's the why behind kind of what we do, right? And making sure that those are conversations that everybody is privy to, I think is important. I know Jake just mentioned that with, like, you know, longevity, sustainability of the chapter. If we bring the right people in, we're going to have a better chapter, right? If we are successful in recruitment, we will be a successful chapter. You know, we're just going to be able to do more. We're going to have more money. We're going to, you know, all the things are going to fall into place if we have a successful recruitment in the right way. And making sure that the recruitment workshops are great opportunities to have those conversations, right? So making sure that we're utilizing the recruitment workshops in the right way around, first of all, everybody should be at the recruitment workshop. That should be a mandatory meeting for everybody in the chapter. And we should have all of these conversations. You can have the conversations around expectations there. You can have the conversations around incentives there. You can have the conversation around the why behind what's the why behind what we're trying to do here. So utilizing all of those pieces together should allow you to produce a successful involvement from everybody in the chapter. I think you just have to be, you know, again, realistic around what is a realistic ask of everybody, right? And I think that's where you probably, as a recruitment director, have to do some thinking around and working maybe with your committee around what is our basic ask to the chapter, and how are we stating that, you know? And if you're able to state that clearly and often, and, you know, repeat it and everything, you're then able to hold them accountable to those expectations. So James, did that help?
That helped tremendously. I've been taking notes throughout this, y'all talking.
Perfect. What other questions do we have on any of these pieces? Cool. Jake, you want to take it away?
Yeah. So, I mean, so as Cody was mentioning, you know, where the recruitment workshops is a really good place to talk about all the things that him and I just talked about, like setting expectations, you know, discussing the why of like why recruitment is important and why everybody should be pitching in. Recruitment workshops, like they're really a way for you, like thinking kind of back to the sports analogy we used earlier with football. Like the recruitment workshop is kind of like reviewing the playbook in football or like any other sport. So, you know, if the team doesn't know like what's in the playbook, they don't review it. You know, they don't know what kind of they don't know what's going to be, they don't know what the game plan is. So they don't know their roles, they don't know how they can help. And you may lose the game. So the recruitment workshop is a really important way for you guys to train your brothers and then the new brothers when they join on how you guys recruit, you know, how we want to recruit, you know, what the process looks like, and what like everyone's role in recruitment should be like. James, Misha, have you guys ever hosted a workshop or participated in one before?
Yeah, actually, I had one last semester because it was informal. Most of our recruiting was going on through like social events and through our philanthropy that we were doing on campus and things like that. That was just how we were kind of trying to go about it last semester. And so we held a workshop on like how to interact with P&Ms, get them over to the house, things like that. But I'm planning on having another one specific to formal once we get back in school.
Okay, awesome.
For me, I'd never hosted a workshop, but I last semester I participated in a workshop where we had the same kind of thing, you know, the best way to recruit, how to talk to, you know, P&Ms, what to say, stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, and really like the recruitment workshops, they don't need to be super long, like intensive things. Like an ideal workshop, it can be done within 30 minutes. You know, some of the things you guys want to go, you know, you guys want to discuss is like the who, what, when, where, why, and how of recruitment. You know, how to build good conversation skills and tips when talking with potential new brothers. How to identify a potential new brother. You know, like what qualities are we looking for? You know, what are green flags with, you know, potential new brothers, or potential red flags, things like that. You know, helping our brothers understand what are the finances of the chapter. We want to make sure that we understand how much dues are, all of that stuff, so that they can then communicate that to potential new brothers. If we don't communicate, you know, the finances to potential new brothers, that's our fault. Potential new brothers need to understand all of that stuff, so that when they join, they don't realize, oh crap, I can't afford being in this fraternity and now I got to drop, and then your retention rate goes down. So that's something you guys want to make sure that potential new brothers understand. You guys want to make sure new brothers understand like the standards of biddings. You know, what are do's and don'ts of recruitment? You know, let's make sure that we're talking about, you know, what, you know, who we are as a chapter, like what are the values of the fraternity, things like that. We want to make sure we're not just talking about like partying and things like that. And then making sure that we can try to give every brother a role in recruitment. It doesn't mean you need to be like, everyone needs to have like a super specific job. There's like, hey, like make sure that like, you know, Bob and Joe, you're helping out this committee director or something like that. Or like, hey, guys, just make sure that you show up to the recruitment events. Like, you know, make sure that you're going up and talking to potential new brothers, things like that. Questions about other things that could be in recruitment workshops, or what questions you guys have about any of the things I just talked about?
I'd like to just highlight a few things here as well. One activity that I see work a lot in recruitment workshops, and we have examples of recruitment workshops in the Resource Center in ZBT. If you're unfamiliar what the Resource Center is, or where it is, or anything like that, talk to us after and we can give it to you and tell you where it is and all that. But we have examples of recruitment workshops that have worked that I've seen that have been really successful. And one of those things that some of those recruitment workshops have is that activity that we just did yesterday around the values and benefits, around why people, you know, are going to college, why people are attending why they're joining fraternities, and why they join ZBT. I love when chapters do that with their whole chapter, because it really creates, you're really able to hone in on exactly what's unique about ZBT and your chapter. And then you're really able to figure out what you're selling. You know, you're able to figure out what it is. You can make your elevator pitch. You can do all those things, and it forces brothers to, you know, not say the basic, oh yeah, we have the tightest brotherhood on campus. We do community service, philanthropy. It's what every chapter says, right? It's what I said yesterday around like, how are we selling something that's unique, something that people want to join, that's not the same as everything else. I love when chapters do that. I always recommend that chapters add that into their recruitment workshop if they are, you know, missing opportunities around activities of how to get the conversation stimulated. Additionally, I want to focus on the standards for bidding portion. This needs to be a focus for you guys, I think, in general, as we kind of move forward, you know, in the broader scheme of fraternity. We need to have a clear set list of standards for who we're giving a bid to and who we're not. Why are we giving bids out to people? Do they meet X, Y, and Z standards that we're looking for? When I recently did the University of Miami expansion this past fall, we had a massive number of people that wanted to be in ZBT. I was the only person recruiting there, so I had to decide who I was gonna give a bids to out of hundreds of people. And so what I did, same thing that I tell every chapter to do, is I created a list of standards around what was the type of person that I wanted. I wanted people that were in leadership positions. I wanted people that were involved on campus. I wanted people that upheld the ZBT values and aligned with the mission of ZBT. So I created that list of standards and I applied that to every single person that I met with. And that really allowed me to figure out who I wanted to join ZBT, who I wanted to be in ZBT, and who didn't. who I didn't. And so that will help you in the during kind of recruitment period. If you have a clear list of standards, that's going to really help you out in the during recruitment of being able to quickly identify, okay, we're going to give this person a bid. We're not going to give this person a bid, right? It can't just be your standards for bidding can't just be, well, he's a really cool guy, yeah, he's a really cool guy. If that's your standard for giving out a bid, I think we need to talk about that, right? There needs to be a little bit more there. And you can always utilize your brotherhood quality standards here as well, because those are going to be the standards that everybody should be, everybody in the chapter, they're going to apply to everybody in the chapter. So if you use that as a baseline, and then maybe you can add a few little more if you're looking for a specific type of person, leaders or people that are involved on campus, you can add those kind of pieces in there as well. But I definitely want to hone in on that, of the importance of having that conversation around standards for giving out bids, because that's going to help you out in the long run overall.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, well, so moving on. So I know Cody, when he was kind of talking about, working on the committees and how committees, should be working on building out the names list. I want to talk a little bit more about the names list, how to build it out, and like what that should look like. So really, I think sometimes there's the misconception that we build the names list off of like people who attend like our first recruitment event. But that's really not the case. We want to make sure that we have a names list prepared like before that even happens. So we want to have people on that list, and we want to be inviting those people to the recruitment events. I think kind of just preparing to, how do we build interest? How do we build this names list? That we can build that through like gaining interest from like the different marketing strategies we have. Maybe we have some sort of like, kind of some small brotherhood events if your school allows it for you to be interacting with people before recruitment. Invite them to like, if you guys are going out to lunch, or you guys are having or studying or something like that. Increasing your visibility on social media so that, either you're reaching out to people on social media or they're reaching out to you, developing outreach to alumni and parents and all of that stuff. So using all of these different strategies to try to get people onto that names list before you guys even have your first recruitment event. What are some ways that you guys have like used a names list before, if ever?
So last semester, I made me and the former recruitment chair made a names list, and it went very well. Making the names list went very well, but we ran into the issue of it a lot of our guys in the chapter are older. And so at the time, they did not have a lot of connections around campus like some of us younger guys did. But it also felt like, I don't know, we had a names list, but it was not very effective. It was just like a list of people that we knew that we thought might be interested.
Right. And I think sometimes I know a lot of chapters kind of run into this issue of like, okay, well, we've got a lot of older guys, but like a lot of these older guys, they don't know freshmen. It's hard to get younger guys recruited. But I think, if we think about kind of like the different pipelines we have, what are those older guys involved in? Do they have jobs on campus? Are they in different clubs? Certainly those different jobs or clubs, there's probably going to be freshmen joining those things. And then you can use those older brothers to recruit, those younger guys that way. But then don't forget, like we talked about things of having like, the different, I can't think of the word, but basically like the freshman Facebook page for that academic group, things like that. So thinking about those pipelines, how can you utilize those pipelines to kind of just think outside of the box? Like there's got to be different ways that you guys probably know, or you guys are going to meet younger guys than just them showing up to the recruitment events. Does that make sense, James?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we had a list as well. It was just very difficult because, for us, recruitment is a lot bigger in the fall.
Mhm.
And we had a big class in the fall, including myself. But then when it came to the spring, there were just way less people rushing because all the main people who wanted to join a fraternity already joined, their respective fraternities. So we had some trouble. We had a names list, and eventually, a lot of people, who were potential, new members either decided to not continue with the process or join other fraternities. So, we had a lot of trouble. But I think a big thing for us that we need to improve on is recruit heavily in the fall for the spring. I feel like we didn't do that enough, and we were kind of really last minute, and that's what we only, our list went down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think I mean, I can totally see that, and I think there's probably lots of opportunity around, just general preparation for the spring for you, specifically for Berkeley, that could probably be improved upon. I think what I'm kind of hearing as well right here is, all right, so we got a names list. Now, what do we do with it, right? And so I think that that's probably a good conversation, for us to have around, like, what does a names list actually mean? You can have 200 people on your names list, but if you're not actively engaging them, it doesn't matter. You have 0 people on your names list, right? So what does utilizing a names list actually look like? It was probably, a good conversation for us to have. I would say, wherever, if you are creating your own names list, there is nothing stopping you from reaching out to those people and talking to those people, right? I know some campuses have recruitment restrictions around when you can talk to, the IFC list and stuff like that. If we're creating our own names list, there is nothing stopping us from talking to those individuals and building relationships with them and talking with them, right? This is also where your committee comes into play around actively utilizing a names list, right? One thing that you probably should be doing is splitting up everybody on that names list into all the people in your committee, and having each maybe one person in your committee is talking to 10 people on the names list, taking them out to dinner, taking them engaging them, trying to build a relationship with them, inviting them over to the house to meet other different brothers or something like that, for example. Lots of different ways that the brothers can engage those people on the names list, but you have to be proactive around engaging those people on that names list, right? So the best way that I've seen is, splitting that up between brothers on your committee, or if you have other people that are know some of those people on the names list or something like that. Maybe, a freshman that you recruited in the fall lives with 10 people in the same dorm. And so having that one person actively bring those people to the house or something like that, or introduce them to other brothers, actively recruit those individuals. That's how we got to use a names list, right? A names list is not just to inform who potentially may want to join. A names list is for you to be proactive, for your chapter to be proactively recruiting those individuals. And so actively talking with them, trying to sell them on ZBT, before they have, before even that formal recruitment period, right? So I think that's another kind of thought here. And Misha, to your point, that's what you can be doing in the fall, right? If you're recruiting for the spring, that's what you can be doing in the fall, after that, kind of big recruitment period, around building out that names list and actively recruiting off of it, for the whole time, right? You don't have to give bids out all the time, right? When we say 365 recruitment, it doesn't mean that you have to give a bid out every day of the year. It means that you're always talking to people. You're always engaging people. You're always trying to build out that names list for whatever the next recruitment that you have is, right? So I think hopefully that was a little bit helpful as far as like what to do with the names list when you have it. If there's one thing to take away, it's just being proactive around it and always engaging those individuals, building relationships with those individuals at any point that you can.
Yeah, and just going off of what Cody was just talking about is like actively like using your names list. Not only should you be, using that names list to reach out to potential new brothers, but you should also use the names list to keep track of like, hey, where are these brothers in the recruitment process? So, I mean, you guys can use Excel, Google Docs, whatever you use for your names list. I know on my ZBT, we actually like if you go to my ZBT, you guys go to like the chapter profile, whatever. We have a recruitment page on there, and it basically has a names list set up for you guys. So you guys, when you guys are using a names list, you want to make sure that you have their contact information. You want to know if these people are expressing interest. If people are like telling you like, hey, I'm not interested, let's mark that so we don't keep bugging this person. If we're interested in them, let's make sure that we're tracking that. When was the last time that they were contacted? Have we been staying in contact with these brothers? Are we ready to give them a bid? These are all the things that we want to be tracking. So that's really helpful. And all of that, like all of those different levels or where brothers can be in the process, they're listed in that MyZBT recruitment page. So it's a really easy way to utilize a names list if you guys want to do that. So kind of like building off of that, I want to talk about, kind of like building relationships. I think this is, when it comes to recruitment, I think this is one of the greatest challenges our brothers have is developing, healthy relationships with potential new brothers. So we've had brothers, we've sent out surveys before, and a lot of feedback that we got was that brothers joined their ZBT chapters because the chapter provided like unique experiences and really made them feel like that they were joining something bigger than themselves and they were going to be part of something compared to other chapters that they were talking to. So kind of want to throw it out to you guys. Like, what do you guys do in your chapters to try to build relationships with potential new brothers? What does that look like for you guys?
So what we've done in the past, and it's worked with varying levels of success. Sometimes worked really well, sometimes really didn't. And it was kind of just, this is outside of formal, like how we would get in informal and other things is we would meet them through something, whether that be through our dorms or organizations or whatever. And we would invite them over to the house and we would see if they had a good time. Just kind of get to meet the brothers. And if they did, we would kind of just keep having them over, getting them over, building relationships with them, talking to them about ZBT. And then eventually, once we feel like they're definitely interested, we're interested in them because they're a quality potential new brother, then that's when we would extend a bid. And I would really like to see some more, for our chapter at least, some more formality in how we go about that.
Yeah, I think that's all great. Like, asking them to go out and to do stuff, things like that. I know, James, like you were saying, like, you guys do that after your formal recruitment period, I think, but like, why not do that also during the formal recruitment period? You guys can have your big major recruitment events, but then like in between the days during then, like if guys can like say like, hey man, like it was great seeing you at the event yesterday. Like, want to come out and get like lunch with me? Really like you guys should be treating this like, treat potential new brothers as like you're trying to make friends with someone, or they may already be a potential brother. Treat them like that to build that kind of like mutual respect, and then give them that trust. You want to kind of work on those things with them. And I always like when chapters do like one-on-one interactions. I think that's probably one of the best ways to do that, or like the small group interactions. It makes people feel like they're not just showing up to these events and that is just like another number for the chapter. So, I mean, I think just other things, just kind of the relationship building things to make sure that you guys are working on is, like I said, so mutual respect, trust. You want to make sure that you're honest with people throughout the entire recruitment process. You don't tell them things about the chapter that aren't true to try to make it sound better, or don't try to say like, hey, like, dues are only like $10 a month when it's really like, we're actually paying like $600 like a semester or something like that. be supportive throughout the recruitment process. Especially during the formal recruitment process, there's a lot going on, like a lot, especially for some of our freshmen, potential new brothers. They're just starting school. They're potentially going to a bunch of different recruitment events for different fraternities. There's a lot on their mind. Just be supportive through that process. That can really help them in making sure that hey, I'm making the right decision going with CBT. Making sure that you're treating everyone that you guys talk to fairly as potential new brothers, and making sure that you're communicating well. If potential new brothers are trying to message you, you're not responding, or you're not telling people about the recruitment events you guys are doing or things like that, how can you expect them to want to join the organization if you guys aren't communicating with them as well? Questions about any of these just kind of aspects to relationship building? And then just kind of in general, I think kind of just different steps to trying to get one to join, the fraternity is, first of all, we got to meet them. So if we aren't meeting people, we can't really, get them to come to our events and join. Second, we want to make sure that, like I said before, we're treating them like friends, treating them like brothers. So become their friends. Make it seem like that, I shouldn't say make it seem like we care. We do want to care about these people. So we want them to understand that we care about them, and we're not just recruiting them for their numbers and their dues. Introduce them to your friends, introduce them to the other brothers in the chapter, include them in on, the friend group. To that aspect, I think, especially with people who may not be interested in the fraternity, or I should say in the fraternity, interested in fraternity sorority life, if you're working with people that are yeah, I'm not interested in fraternities, that's not really my thing, you can introduce them to brothers as just friends first. You don't even need to make it hey, these are all my fraternity brothers, make it all about the fraternity. But become their friends first, and then you can introduce them to the fraternity once they realize hey, these people are cool, I like hanging out with them, and then be hey man, we are in this fraternity, there's more of us. That's a way that you can kind of work around trying to get people, get them interested in the idea of CBT. And then finally inviting them to join. So handing them that bid, telling them that you're excited that you guys are wanting them to join. And then hopefully they accept the bid. Questions about any of these steps? What are some reasons that you guys think that people don't join fraternities, or even your own chapter?
What was the question? Why people don't join fraternities?
Yeah, or even if there's been times where someone didn't join your chapter specifically. What are some of the reasons for that?
I think in general, it's the time commitment. I feel a lot of freshmen, they come in and they don't really know what a fraternity is, and they're very, apprehensive about it. And I feel not knowing much about what a fraternity is and coming into college, a lot of people are overwhelmed. And I think that really, and also like I said, they come primarily, they come to college for academics, and they don't want a fraternity and the commitment to get in the way of that.
Yeah, and I think talking about that, I think that's why, earlier I talked about communicating and being honest with people. That's super important. So being upfront with them about things like the time commitment, the financial commitment, what actually is a fraternity. If we don't explain that to people, they're going to be in a shock for, if they do actually join and then they're oh, this actually isn't for me. Or if we don't educate them throughout the recruitment process, they won't be able to make, a good informed decision. Some other things that we commonly hear is that, I think especially, on some bigger campuses or, larger chapters, Potential new brothers, they don't get to meet enough people. Even for smaller chapters, if you guys aren't showing up to recruitment events and there's only like 5 guys, 5 of our brothers showing up to all the events, like you don't really get a great idea of what the chapter is like and who the people are. So making sure that, we're trying to get potential new brothers to meet everyone in the chapter to the best of our ability. Recruitment events are not like, we can try to plan as many fun recruitment events as we want, but recruitment events are not going to be the reason why brothers join our chapter. It's just a way to get them through the door, like building the relationships during the events and outside of the events. That's how we get people to join. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on that relationship building aspect and that communication. Questions about that? I know we've I kind of just brought up like, you guys can plan really good events, but that's not necessarily going to be the reason why you join a fraternity. But we just kind of want to talk about recruitment events a little bit. Like, what are some of the recruitment events that you guys have planned, and like what has worked well for you guys? Thinking of how events are a way to get people to show up.
For us, like usually the first couple of days of recruitment week, we'll have one of the brothers will like pick up, Chick-fil-A, and we'll have like a bunch of Chick-fil-A for like potential, new members to come. And I feel like that's worked pretty well. It's obviously, really enticing for people who are just walking, and I feel like that's been a really good, way for us to meet people. And, a lot of new people feel welcomed at our house. And I think that's really worked for us.
Yeah, I feel like food is always a good way to get people to events, right? Free food to a college student, I think is good. Those are good, I think, tried and true methods of events. I think that work. I think it's a matter of, we want to have a diverse schedule of all the different things that we can offer during a recruitment event in a way that tries to market the chapter to everybody, right? So I think having a little bit of everything is usually a good call. So doing, info sessions, food, events with food. We could do events, maybe more activity-based events, maybe some sporting events, stuff like that. But then also, I think additionally, what we something I always recommend to chapters is, this concept of hosting outside of the box recruitment events, ones that you don't normally think of as recruitment events. The one that I usually use as an example is a gift of life drive as a recruitment event. And so having people come, doing the swab, getting them registered in the registry. And I think that's a really cool event because it shows that we're actually doing something, right? That we're actually trying to make a difference in the community. And it shows that we're not just about, we're not just a social fraternity. We are something more than that, right? And so I think how can we have a mix of everything is a good, kind of way to frame recruitment events and the planning of your recruitment events, the offerings of your recruitment events as a whole. So yeah.
Yeah. So to just kind of wrap things up for succeeding, like preparing to succeed in recruitment, some of the key things that you guys want to remember is making sure that you guys are planning recruitment workshops. You guys have developed your recruitment committee already, working on, your potential, your names list, plan some weekly recruitment events, making sure your marketing on social media and stuff like that is all set up, and making sure that you're reaching out to people, we're being transparent with them, and making sure that we're having really strong communication with potential new brothers prior to recruitment. Any questions? Okay, Cody, I'll pass back to you.
Yeah. Real quick to just kind of add one thought on this. We do have a like a recruitment preparation checklist as a resource in the resource center. So same thing with the resource center. We can share that with you guys after, if you don't know exactly where it is. But that's a good little checklist of like things you need to get done before the preparation of recruitment. I know, Misha, you had a question yesterday of when is a good time to prepare. I think for us at the moment, we should like I know you guys will start recruitment around August like 13th or so, 12th, or kind of, maybe right around there, maybe a little bit later. So we want to start working on it now. We want to have some of these plans set in place now if we don't already. And so, for that specifically, and then, like you mentioned, pretty much right after fall recruitment is finished, you can start preparing for spring recruitment and start working on spring recruitment, right? So I think there's not a blanket answer of when you need to start preparing for recruitment, but I think those are good thoughts there around when we need to do it. So as we move into the conversation around the during recruitment, and I apologize, there were some issues with the PowerPoint, so I don't have a PowerPoint that's going to correspond with what I'm about to say, but I'll hopefully be able to just explain everything verbally. The during recruitment is, I want to say less important than the preparation. It's very important, but it is what you're doing during recruitment. If you prepare correctly, the during aspect of recruitment should be very easy. You should have all the events planned. You should have a names list of people that you're inviting out to events. You should have X, Y, and Z things that we already talked about, and you should just be able to execute upon your preparation. That's why the preparation portion of recruitment is the most important. But specifically, we want to talk through, recruitment events and making sure that we're executing on the recruitment events in the right way. We talked through different examples of recruitment events that would work. Just kind of want to echo some of those thoughts here as well of making sure that we have a wide offering of recruitment events. One example of something that I used I've used in the past in expansions is, hosting an alumni panel or something like that as a recruitment event. Something that, I think that kind of falls into what I was talking about earlier of an outside of the box recruitment event. What does that tell potential new brothers? It tells that, people are involved in ZBT after they graduate. It says actually that when you are joining a network that you have access to that network, right? It's more than just, I think this is a time when the actions speak louder than words. It's more than just saying, oh yeah, we have a great alumni network, but actually here's our alumni, and they're coming back and they're actually involved in the success of ZBT Brothers. Great way to do that. If you don't have a lot of chapter from your alumni, don't worry. We've seen chapters do it with ZBT alumni that are not from their chapter that might just be in the area. Right. So this is maybe a time when you can bring in some advisors that you have or something like that. But there's lots of different opportunities of ways to kind of add that to your offerings as recruitment events. But the moral of the story with recruitment events, like I said before, we just want to have a large offering of what we're able to provide. Right. So as we move forward, the biggest aspect of the during part of recruitment is going to be sealing the deal of getting the potential new brothers to become brothers, right? So I want to share with you a sales concept that we utilize a lot in this recruitment conversations called the process of sealing the deal, the 7 P's of sealing the deal, right? So let me see, I can probably, Jay, could you just throw these in the chat as I talk through them, just so we have something to kind of a list to kind of work off with. But first P is going to be positivity, right? When we're trying to make a sale, when we're trying to explain what ZBT is and get somebody to join, we want to be positive about that, right? If we're not happy, if we don't have a smile on our face, if we don't look like we're having a good time, also, that's going to turn people off, right? So simply put, just having a positive attitude on everything, being happy, being excited about, we're in the middle of recruitment. Yeah, recruitment's a lot of hard work, right? So we want to, not portray that we're maybe tired or something like that. We want to be positive when we're talking to people. Absolutely. We also want to have passion. If you're not passionate about ZBT, if you're not passionate about the product that you're selling, why would anybody buy it, right? The most successful salesmen are gonna say that, right? So that's what we want to kind of take into us as well. We want to make sure that we're passionate and that they can see our passion for ZBT and why did we join and why are we passionate about this organization. Going on with that, we need to be knowledgeable about the product and what we're selling. So product knowledge is super important as well. If you're not able to answer questions about ZBT, I think that's going to throw a lot of red flags to potential new brothers as far as like, well, this guy doesn't even know how much dues are. He doesn't even know, the time commitment that we're gonna need or anything like that, right? So that's going to turn people off. So we want to be able to be well informed around everything, and this goes into the preparation aspect of and the education of all brothers around, what are the things that we need them to know, and what are the things that we need to be knowledgeable about to be able to explain, right? The next P is persistence. So this doesn't necessarily mean to nag all your potential new brothers on your names list or anything like that, but it does mean to be persistent about trying to communicate with them, right? Don't just text, speaking of the names list, example specifically, don't just, reach out to them once and then think that they're, a done deal. We want to be talking to them regularly. We want to be checking in. Hey man, how are things going? You want to grab dinner? You want to grab lunch? Something like that. Trying to be persistent about building a relationship with them. That goes a long way with them, potential new brothers realizing, that we do value them, right? Next P is patience. So patience is super important when we're on the cusp of potentially getting a bid acceptance or not. We want to be patient, understanding that everybody has their own decision to make. And however we can be helpful in those decisions, we can be, but we want to be patient in not forcing a decision right away if they need a little bit of extra time to think about it. I kind of mentioned this piece as well in the patience piece, but the next P is problem solving, right? So you might have a potential new brother comes up and says, yeah, I want to join ZBT, but I'm not sure about X, Y, and Z things. I don't know how I'm going to pay for ZBT. Well, okay, we have opportunities for payment plans. We have opportunities for scholarships. Here's the scholarships that the ZBT Foundation provides, all this kind of stuff, right? So we want to be able to solve any potential problem that they might have, and just say, okay, well, we'll figure out a way to make that work, right? And sometimes there might not be a way to do it, but I think 9 times out of 10, if we try hard enough, we can figure out, a solution to every problem. And then the last P is to just pay attention. This is a big piece when it comes to recruiting, sales in general. We want to listen more than we want to talk, right? We want to make sure that we're listening to what that potential new brother is saying. What are his concerns? What is he about? Well, what are his values? All of those things. We want to make sure that we are able to, after a conversation with somebody, we want to be able to walk away and make sure that we have a good understanding of that individual, and ways that we can help that potential new brother get into the chapter, right? So does anybody have any questions on those 7 Ps of sealing the deal as far as that goes? Are there areas that we think maybe we're excelling in some of those categories, or maybe areas that we think we should be improving in our general communication in recruitment efforts? Ways that we're excelling or ways that we could improve? Any thoughts on that?
I think with my chapter specifically, patience is definitely something that I think we could improve on. We're not doing terrible in it by any means, but I think just making it clear that this is not a decision that has to be made today. We definitely could have benefited us a little bit in the spring, because I think it may have came across a little bit that way sometimes. And then also product knowledge, specifically relating to dues and how they work. I know there's a little bit of like misunderstanding with some of the more nitty gritty among our brothers that I'd really like to hammer out before we get into formal recruitment.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great point. Where exactly, being able to, it's one thing to, have a number and be able to remember a number. It's another thing to remember exactly where the dues go and stuff like that, right? And that's a, I think that's a problem for just, a lot of chapters and a lot of general brothers like, well, yeah, I pay this amount. I don't know exactly where the money goes or what it goes to or something, but being able to have those answers and make sure that the chapter understands that, it was definitely going to go a long way, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, Misha, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think for us, our main, thing that, I think that's worked well is we're all very positive all the time. Whether it's talking to rushies or like during their recruitment process, everyone seems motivated, to get new members. And when talking to them, everyone's very positive and excited. I just think we need to all stay on the same page. And I think staying on the same page and, being proactive with the recruitment process is something that, could help us even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that thought. I think this is, when we're thinking of, things that the chapter can latch on to when we're trying to educate the chapter as well. This is, a good concept, I think, to bring to the table to kind of run through quickly, similar to what I just did with everybody around, what do we need to do during recruitment and something to remember just around, for general brothers to kind of remember some of these things and break down, areas that your chapter could improve on and things like that. This could be, an additional, component of a recruitment workshop or something like that you could bring to the table as well. One other aspect of the during part of recruitment that I want to kind of just briefly talk through is the deciding on who's gonna get a bid or not. This is a big a big part of the during part of recruitment around, who's your final number, what is your final number, who are the people that you're going to give bids to, and who are you not. I think this goes back to what I talked about before around having the correct standards for giving out a bid. If you have clear and concise standards for a bid, that process is going to be really easy because you're going to just be able to apply everybody to those standards and be able to make a decision. If you do not have a clear set of standards, I think that does become a harder conversation because when you're talking with everybody in the chapter around, who you're voting on giving a bid to or not, sometimes that conversation can get kind of wild if you don't have anything to apply people to, right? If the joke that I made before around if your standard is just that he's a cool person, cool is subjective, right? in that sense, right? So that one guy is probably going to think he's the coolest guy ever, and then the other guy is like, no, he's not, right? So that just is going to cause conflict between who you're giving out bids to, what's the voting process looking like. So just want to echo what I said earlier around the importance of having clear and concise standards for giving out a bid and objective standards, not subjective standards. I think that's important as well. So like I said before, right, there is less to the during part of recruitment than there is the preparation part of recruitment, right? So do we have any questions around the during part of recruitment before we kind of move on to the after part of recruitment here as we wrap up? Cool. All right. So the after section of recruitment, very straightforward as well, but I think equally as important to the preparing part of recruitment as well. The after section of recruitment is really a time for you to look back and say what worked, what didn't work, what are ways that we can improve on moving forward, right? So getting your recruitment committee together, getting your chapter together as well, and saying, okay, well, what were we successful at, and what could we improve upon? Were we not as good at engaging the people on our names list this year? Maybe that's what we improve upon moving forward. This recruitment event was awesome, let's definitely keep that in the schedule for next year, right? Something like that, right? We want to have those conversations. We want to evaluate what worked and what didn't work. Additionally, the after part of recruitment absolutely leads into the preparation aspect of recruitment as well. It kind of flows together in a way that, you know, there's not as much separation because, like I said before, ideally, right when you finish recruitment is a great time to start preparing for the next recruitment, right? You evaluate what worked, what didn't work, and then how can we start preparing for recruitment right now? And then it just cycles back to what we talked about, right? Building out that names list, right? Were there people that that we need to carry over from this past recruitment that, you know, still are interested and we're still interested in them, but it just didn't work out in them joining right now, making sure that they make it over to the upcoming names list for the next recruitment, right? How are we marketing ourselves in this kind of off season as well? How are we adding, how are we starting to continue to build a names list right now before the next recruitment as well? So the after part of recruitment really is a direct segue into preparing for the next recruitment. As long as you figure out what worked, what didn't work, and you have some thoughts and ideas around the next recruitment, you get right into preparing for the next recruitment. So pretty I guess a simple answer there as far as like what the after recruitment looks like. As we kind of wrap up today, we didn't have enough time to talk through the kind of marketing aspect of recruitment. We will start off with that tomorrow. So, but want to just open it up to see if there are any questions about what we talked through today, or anything that we want further clarification on before we wrap up and we head into tomorrow. So what questions do you all have about anything that we might have talked to today? Cool. All right. Well, hey, thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for participating in the conversation. Tomorrow we'll be going through kind of a few catch-all items with recruitment. We'll be talking through the marketing aspect of recruitment. We'll be going through some of the legacy referral kind of things as well, and we'll just kind of wrap up the recruitment preparation heading into fall recruitment periods. We'll do some goals and action planning as well. So that's kind of what to look forward to tomorrow. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. And yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys.